All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Ballin and Brawlin. I'm Justin, this is my boy Hebs, and we're going to be breaking down UFC 301 today, just going over the main card of this bizarre and somewhat pathetic pay-per-view putting out by the UFC. Hebs, what's your take on the card?
So obviously, on paper, about as bad as a pay-per-view as you can get. But what are we going to do? Sit here and complain about it? Like, look at the last two cards that they put out, the last two pay-per-views. Two legendary. Everyone was debating whether or not 299 was better than 300. Both bang. 300 lived up to the hype. 299 lived up to the hype. Two of the best. I can't remember the last back-to-back pay-per-views that the UFC has ever put out that have been that good. So, this is just part of the game, right? This is going to happen. And now looking ahead in the next month or so, or a little bit more than that, we have a huge fight with Islam Poirier, massive card there. We have return of the Mac. The Mac is back at the end of June. So, this stuff is just going to happen. Yeah, this card stinks, though. This card stinks. This is so bad. Again, I got casual checked, trying to teach myself a little bit more about some of these cats. But I think it will be one that, we do have some exciting fights. A name value, yes, it could not be worse. I think the main event, it will be wild. And I'm sure we'll have a couple more interesting fights before then. But again, I don't really, the card sucks. But what do you, everyone's fought already this year. And all the Brazilians, I'm sure they planned to have some more of those guys on this card going back to Brazil, which they've done in the past. And then they just put literally all the Brazilians on 300 with Pereira, do Bronx. So, I don't know. What are you going to do?
That's a good point. That is a good point you make, though. I feel like the fans are all about, they expect every card to be like UFC 300. It's that's just not realistic. Yeah, we'll take those cards. We'll take the bangers anytime we can get them. But that's just not. You don't get those cards every pay per view. Is this one of the worst pay per views they've put out within the last ever? Yes, but you get what the UFC's doing. The UFC's really just on a contract with ESPN where they have to put a set amount of pay per views and cards out a year. So. There's gonna be some pay-per-view duds like this every year.
Are there though? Are there? This is could not be worse.
Not this bad.
I hate, but the UFC
Hold on,
fan.
the next time Raquel Pennington's headlining a pay-per-view, that'll probably be
That's the one that I at least, again, I didn't do too much research about this, but off the top of my head, when was that? Last summer, Pennington versus wasn't she fighting Nunes in Canada? The fight, Oliveira versus Benil in Toronto or in Canada, that was a terrible pay-per-view. But other than that, I don't know, off the top of my head, not too many stick out that are worse than this one. But that's UFC fans are worse than every other sport, dude. You have I don't know, they just complain about everything. As I'm sitting here literally complaining, so I'll shut up. But and then you have the opposite, some of the discourse I see is all the casuals think this card sucks. Actually, a lot of great prospects on this one. It's dude, shut up. Shut up. So kicking off the main card, again, this kind of got prelims vibes written all over it. We have Paul Craig. Impossible not to do the accent while saying his name, the Bear Jew, versus
I don't know how to pronounce it either.
Caio Borralho, I believe is the correct pronunciation. I can't even pronounce pronunciation, unfortunately. Again, who cares? We have Paul Craig, the guy who kind of has this great mystique around him. A lot of people like him. When he was at 205, he was still the only loss on Magomed Ankalaev's record, throwing up that last second triangle after getting his face smashed in the entire night. And then So, and another win over Jamal Hill as well. So up until a few weeks ago, he was the only loss on both of those guys' record. So that's why he had, he's beat a lot of great people, and he's also lost to some bums. But then he moves down to 185, gets a lot of people excited about that. What has he done since? Absolutely not a damn thing. I actually just was watching the weigh-ins. He looked drained. I know he's the jump from 205 down to 185 is no small move. So he did not look good, and he was already a little bit chinny already. So I don't know if that move, again, I understand what he was trying to do, but the narrative with Craig forever has been he's so good on the ground. His jiu-jitsu is so high level that if he just figures out the striking a little, like at all, he's going to be an elite fighter. Still hasn't done it, won't do it. And against Barajo, younger guy, I don't think Craig, even though moving down in weight, he's not going to have a massive size advantage against this guy. And a good wrestler is in his own right. I'm not sure he wants to play around with Craig on the ground. A massive, massive, massive advantage in the striking for Barajo. Who knows if I'm saying that right? Who cares? He's going to knock him out. Craig, again, we're going to see him panic shoot, or not panic. He'll be shooting from 5 seconds into the fight, obviously. But again, I think a guy who had already gotten knocked out at light heavyweight moving down, I just don't like that at all. He looked so drained, not the best chin ever to begin with. He's getting sparked out, and again, he'll always have the Jamal Hill triangle with the arm waving all over the place. I mean, he'll always have that. He'll always have the cool face paint, but he won't have. He can't throw a 1-2 to save his life. He's getting knocked out. Talk to me, Justin. What do we think,
dude? It blows my mind the hype and excitement that fans somewhat put out on social media about Paul Craig.
Paul Craig. It's just fun to say his name.
Dude, it's Paul Craig fight week. Bro, the guy
Where did you see that? Who do you follow that saying Paul Craig fight week?
I see it on Twitter all the time when he's fighting, and it'll have him at the weigh-ins with his painted face as if he's a Kamaru Usman in the Nigerian Nightmare Run. I don't understand what exactly the hype is. The guy is when I watch the guy fight, okay, I'm obviously not a fighter, but when I watch the guy fight, the guy has he's got a triangle, he's got some submissions he throws out. That's about it. All right. I don't understand how the guy has wins over Ankalaev and Hill. Talk about some Hail Mary prayers on those. Props to him. I tip the cap. But he shoots for takedowns from 5 yards away. He pulls guard as if he's Charles Dubronx back in the day. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. But with that being said, he did make the move down to middleweight. But I just think this is stylistically a terrible matchup for him. I think the UFC wants to get this card started off with a little bit of a bang, wake this crowd up, get the Brazilians excited for the rest of the main card. And I think we're going to see Barajo put him away inside 2 rounds in this one. Barajo's, I'd like to say he must know Paulo Costa because the physique looks like he's got a little secret juice in him. You know what I mean? But
strong and jacket.
Yeah, he throws a lot on the feet. Fights from the southpaw. I think he puts Paul Craig away inside 2 rounds. I don't think Paul's gonna have anything for him on the feet. So hopefully he can get the fight down. Otherwise, we know what's gonna happen. Minus 650 for a reason there, Barajo.
A lot of crazy lines in this card, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. But leading on to the next one, another fan favorite, and Michel Pereira taking on a guy that I saw his last fight in Ihor Potieria. He actually looked pretty decent. I saw him fight Shogun. Obviously, not the Shogun of
the ghost of Shogun.
Yeah, the ghost of Shogun, let's say. But he did look decent in the fight. He had some strong output. But yeah, again, another huge favorite here. The Brazilian Pereira coming in at minus 650. Again, quick take from my side. Pereira's just going to probably be too big and explosive for him. But I don't know. We see if Pereira can't get guys out of there, and his explosive attacks aren't as effective on some of these guys, we see him look a lot more lackluster in the fights that he's not just overwhelming his opponent. So I'm interested to see how this one plays out. I don't see him as that big of a favorite, but I mean, the Brazilians are juiced up for this card. So what's your take on it, Hebs?
Dude, so Pereira, Pereira, he's looked
Yeah.
unbelievable since moving up to middleweight. I think people talk about the difference in skill at the lighter weight classes, particularly a 170 to 185, or not, and then it just keeps getting worse, I guess, as you go up to light heavyweight and then heavyweight. So you see, like, even if there is a size disadvantage, because this guy was a former light heavyweight. So when Pereira was fighting at welterweight, 170, this guy was fighting at 205. So you'd think there's a big size advantage, but I don't really think that matters. Pereira is going to be way faster than him. He's been on a tear. I think he's won 5 in a row. He's undefeated since moving up to middleweight. A guy who's always been super skilled, but super fun to watch. At least,
Yeah.
he does some nut. I think that was against. Was that? I don't even know. I feel like it was Nico Pratt when he did the backflip into like, and he should have been an illegal kick because he was grounded and he like landed on his face.
Bro, did you see him at the weigh-in yesterday? Freaking jumping up and down off his back.
Yeah, he's very acrobatic, but he's a fun fighter.
Yeah.
His I said he was skilled. Maybe his skill has never really matched the type of stuff he does, but he's definitely must-see TV. And who knows, maybe he's finally found his weight class. Again, he's looked fantastic since moving up. The line is a little ridiculous, minus 650. So, but I see him being way too fast. Him getting a victory, I don't know if it'll be a knockout. I think he has the advantage on the ground and on the feet. But he's a guy back home, especially. We could see some backflips, some Anthony Pettis kicks off the cage, some fun stuff like that. So again, this could be one of those that on paper doesn't look like much, but maybe it turns into an exciting fight. I got Michel Pereira, and I think he makes easy money. But then maybe middleweight stinks. So who knows if he puts together. I think that would be 6 in a row, 3-0 at middleweight with a win. Who knows what you do with him next? Not like you got all these hungry dogs waiting in that weight class. So who knows who he's got next? So moving right along, we have the matchup of the evening, the battle of the undefeateds. Say what you will about this card. What a matchup. 2 undefeated fighters. You have the 11-0 undefeated prospect, Vitor Petrino, versus the undefeated on paper, the champion on paper, Anthony Smith. Never lost in hypothetical situations. Unfortunately, in the octagon, he's lost quite a few times. Justin, I'm giddy with excitement. I want to hear your take on this one.
Oh man, yeah. We got a nice light heavyweight bout here. Dude, with Anthony Smith, it's like, again, a guy who's tipped the cap to him. Like he's
going to stand and bang with Pereira, and everybody knows it. Let's just be honest. Call a spade, as you would say.
He's had a decent career. If we're calling a spade, he had a little run here back in the day where he knocked out some old washed up dudes, Rashad Evans. I think a Nogueira was thrown in there. I mean, like, dude, I don't understand like the hype. And then his claim to fame is he says John Jones wasn't that good, but John Jones like made easy work of him. Like, I don't understand. Like, and ever since then, he's kind of like talked and acted as if he's like this like perennial top 5 elite like light heavyweight of his career. Like
they don't say anything. The other light heavyweights don't say anything because they know.
I don't understand it. And then he's talking as if he has plans to make a run and fight Pereira, and it all sounds good. But I'm sitting here looking at ESPN, and we're sitting there looking at an almost plus 400 underdog against a guy, Vitor Petrino, who I'm going to call a spade a spade. I think I've maybe seen fight one time. All right, so
One more than me.
let's be honest here. He's 35. Anthony Smith's 35. He's over the hill. He's in the favelas of Brazil against a young phenom here. What it looks like a little juiced up Brazilian who probably puts him away. Smith doesn't want to be in there. The last time Smith was relevant, it was when he was defending a burglar from his home back in Nebraska. That was the last time he was relevant. I think we see him get put away here in shit. I think we even may see a retirement from Smith. He belongs up in the booth. All right,
he's not retiring without the belt, brother. But yeah, I agree. He does just have some like very interesting takes, and that seems to be what he's more known for now. He does a decent job, I guess, on commentary, but that seems to be, not to say like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because even when he had all his feet in, he wasn't really the best fighter. Unfortunately, you got to tip your cap the guy's always been active. So to give a little, I got really into UFC when in like 2020 around COVID, when there was nothing to do. Obviously, I was already a fan, but that was when I really, I guess, put the casual card away. I remember watching.
I had to get you and Scotty. Scotty, rest of the boys, little taste of it.
Yeah. Okay. That's exactly that's what opened the door, I guess. But then during COVID, when there was nothing to do, I was just got a little more into it. And I remember a lot of those fights pretty well. Do you remember the Glover Teixeira versus Anthony Smith fight? So again, I had not, I only watched the big cards. That was when I started watching just about every card. The beating of a lifetime. And do you remember Anthony Smith, another one of his sound bites saying like, my teeth are falling out, like in the corner after like the third or fourth round. The coach is like, breathe, Anthony, breathe. He's like, my teeth are falling out of my face. And he's like, breathe, good. We got him right where we want him. His teeth were literally like, and then there's another with Glover on top of him, hammering away. Like, I'm sorry, Anthony. Like, and Anthony's like, oh, it's part of the job. Another good sound. I guess the guy loves to chat during fights. As you mentioned, the burglarizing of his house when he fought Johnny Walker, you don't really see too many people get out, technical struck on the feet by Johnny Walker. So not a great sign for him. But while he's getting his leg kicked into oblivion, he just starts saying, whatever, you're coming for my family. And Johnny Walker, what? No idea what he was saying. So that's inside the ring. He likes to chat. He certainly likes to chat outside the ring. I never fault a fighter for really anything they say. I think like 90% of the sport is your confidence. So these guys, like people are hating on Volkanovski right now for saying off night, I'd smash Ilya if we fight again. What are these guys supposed to say? Like, it's a fist fight. It's so different than anything else. So you need to have that confidence. So, and the other part of it is, this is like half, you have to promote yourself. Like we've seen guys that's what this is. It's a business. So we see these guys get leaped all the time. We talked last week about Ankalaev. Nobody cares, doesn't say anything. He might get leaped again. Bilal, so I never fault anyone for saying anything crazy. It really doesn't matter what it is. I almost but that's where we see, I don't know if Anthony Smith is doing this as kind of a bit or if he really believes it. I want to believe it's a bit, maybe somewhere in between. He has some just hilarious takes. He's been on this media tour leading up to this fight. First of all, you're fighting a guy much younger than you who's undefeated. So maybe be more focused on that than Pereira, because I don't think Pereira is thinking about you as much as you keep claiming that he is, or saying like, dude, he knows I'm going to come forward. I'm going to stand and bang, meet him in the middle, and we'll figure it out. Well, first of all, that's not true. And second of what are you talking? It's hysterical. Again, I don't care. I don't fault anyone for anything they say, because now again, us journalists, we're talking about it. Isn't that what they want? So he's not doing anything wrong, but I'm kind of rambling here, but I've just found all this stuff is hysterical, dude. And then when you look at his record, you don't even know what he's pointing to. There was no time. So before the John Jones fight, when he was making his run as a contender and he was fighting the ghosts of the light heavyweight division, I don't even remember. His biggest win was Gustafsson, but that didn't even age very well because Gustafsson was a little over the hill. He's lost to everyone. Like, then he went on a little bit of he had like, a run for this. He's 37-19. So like, could Petrino join the club of the guys who's beat this guy? Like, it's a very big club. The bouncer went home. They're letting everyone in now to the Anthony Smith guys with a victory over Anthony Smith. So, but then he's lost 3 of 4. Both of his last 2 wins against the same guy, Ryan Spann, who's lost like 3 in a row in his own right. So he stinks. And the more recent win was the worst one. He choked him out years ago, and then he won by like the closest decision possible, a split decision, however long ago that was. But now his most recent fight, he got sparked out by Roundtree. So again, I'm sorry for the ramble, but a lot of fun stuff to dive into with my guy. Undefeated on paper. Everyone knows when he puts it together. He's pushing 40. Who knows when he'll put it together? But boy, am I excited because this might be the time he does it. So I'm going. No, unfortunately not with Anthony Smith. We got Vitor Petrino sparks him out. This might not be so good. I think he could really beat him up on the feet. Anthony Smith will channel the inner, you guys are coming from my family, trying to burglarize me. Try your best, buddy. You're getting flatlined. Will he retire? Definitely not. He said he heard the rumors. People say he's over the hill. He might retire. Like, what rumors, dude? Like, what are you talking about? So he gets flatlined.
For his 20th loss in the UFC, his 20th MMA loss. What are we talking here?
He joins another. We're talking about being let into clubs. How many guys have more losses than him in the UFC?
I don't know if there is any.
But again, you almost reverse it that it's like a little admirable to just keep getting off the mat and keep getting back in there and then right back on the mat. Unfortunately, sorry to ramble a little bit about my guy Anthony Smith, but there we go. I think I think we've been on the same page with every fight so far. But now we get into the only 2 interesting fights in this card. The King of Rio, a UFC legend in every sense of the word. The guy Jose Aldo making his return. It's a little bit difficult to say from retirement. He fought like a year ago. I believe, yeah. So
he boxed against Jeremy Stevens like a year ago.
No, but when did he fight Merab? It was not.
I want to say like 2 years ago, probably.
All right, but so again, a very short-lived retirement. He went into boxing, fought Jeremy Stevens. I believe he had one other boxing fight. Makes his return back to the UFC. He had 1 fight left on his contract. So this is an interesting. It's always interesting when a guy returns out of retirement. I said it's always not a good sign, you could say, right? You never love that, especially in combat sports. It's not really something that you could just walk into and not be prepared for. Obviously, Aldo was still actively training, but for boxing, which is a very, very different type of training than mixed martial arts. So who knows why he's making his return? He was definitely still, he looked great. He was on a little bit of a run. Like the 5th or 6th like championship run of his career after losing to Jan. He came out. He still looked fantastic. He beat Rob Font and Pedro Munoz, I think. And then in the Merab fight, Merab couldn't even take him down. He looked great in that fight. He's still, the MMA ages you fast, but he was he's still 37, so it's not like he's crazy old. But a very, very weird fight for his return. Jonathan Martinez a young, hungry challenger who's on a fucking tear right now. I don't get why the UFC does stuff like this. You give a legend coming home, returning to Rio. You have him fight a guy like that. Obviously, you should be fighting Dominic Cruz, like the easiest fight ever to make. But talk to me, Justin. What do you think of Aldo's return? And then how do you see this fight playing out?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting when you see a legend like this who was just inducted into the Hall of Fame, kind of suddenly come out of retirement. But like you said, he's got one fight left on the UFC contract, and I think a big part of that is I think he wants to go and box and make some money that way. You see a lot of the Saudi Arabia people forking out millions of dollars for some of these boxing matches. I think he sees some opportunities in that field, and I think that's why he's coming back to fight out this UFC contract. And like you said, interesting for the UFC to give him a guy like Jonathan Martinez, who's been on a tear. You know, he's shown to be an up and coming fighter, and has a 7-year age advantage on Aldo here. But I think one thing that's going to be interesting on fight night is what Aldo are we going to see? Like this is post USADA. Could this be a little post USADA Aldo run? Because let me tell you something. Pre USADA, Jose Aldo was arguably the best fighter on the planet. And I'm not saying obviously this is not that Jose Aldo, but the guy gets a little bit of that secret sauce back in the system. And I know we've talked about it with some of these other Brazilians. Aldo, like the run of his career, the 10-year undefeated, that was like, dude, he was juiced to the gills, like an unbelievable fighter. And it's just, I'm interested to see how he looks. And a guy like Aldo is what we're going to see is we'll see if Jonathan Martinez is an elite talent or not, if he's a true contender or not, because a guy like Aldo isn't going to lose to guys that are not on that level. Like Aldo is like, I don't care if he's 37 or not. He's not going in there losing to like a bum. You know what I mean? So I'm interested. I'm very interested for this fight. You know what? I'm gonna go with the legend and Aldo to pull off the upset in Rio one more time. I think when I watch Martinez, up and coming fighter, good fighter, but I don't know if he's gonna be able to like take Aldo's game away from him. You see these guys who give Aldo problems, other than the Marab, who's like just Marab's Marab. He's different. He's just an animal. But like the Holloways, the Jans, these elite strikers who are able to just beat Aldo to the shot almost. And even when he fought Max, I mean, he was beating Max to the punch a lot of the time. He just didn't have the power to put Max away. As we've seen, the chin is just undeniable on Max. We can't question it anymore. So I'm actually most excited for this fight, honestly, on the card. Really looking forward to it. And yeah, I'm gonna rock with Aldo as the underdog to come through one last time. And I think he's going to end his UFC career with an upset victory over the young guy Martinez.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm very back and forth, but I am very excited for this fight. I don't really understand why you give, as I said, a guy Aldo, a legend in the sport, making his return at home. Give him a fun fight, dude. Like, apparently it was offered to Dom Cruz. I don't really remember what happened there. That should be the fight here.
Dom Cruz is in the same boat as Anthony Smith. He needs to just stay.
Yeah. Well, they both stink on commentary, dude. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to rip on Cruz too much, but I don't. He's tiring out Khabib's fists. McGregor is with his face. I don't think he'll ever live that one down. Speaking of McGregor, I hate everyone when they talk about Aldo. One thing they'll just like mention is like, oh, the casual fans. They just know him for the McGregor loss. Like, dude, who cares? If that's what the first thing you think when you think Jose Aldo is the McGregor loss, then like you're a loser. Like, who are we talking?
You're a casual.
Who are we describing that's what they think of when they think of Jose Aldo? The career he had before that, the unbeaten, he hadn't lost in 10 years before that. But then look at the work he did after that. He got the belt back. He loses it to Holloway. Then he goes down a weight class. I mean, how frequently do we see guys like have the success he did after moving down? Usually you see someone move up, moves down to 35, goes on another title run. He didn't even look that bad in the Jan fight. He looked good for a while in it. Loses, you think he's going to retire again. Goes on another run, beats Cheeto, beats Rob Font, beats Pedro Munoz. Like, these are all still players in that division. Cheeto just had the title shot. So, again, he's a timeless legend. You got to love Jose Aldo. But when you're really breaking down this fight, Jonathan Martinez is a striker, but he's kind of a flashy striker with all these kicks, with these leg kicks. He doesn't have, I don't think he has that much power in his hands. I think Aldo has a huge advantage in the boxing department. I think he already did, but then he's just been training boxing for the last 2 years. So he has a massive, massive advantage in the boxing department. And with the leg kicks, I mean, we knew Aldo as not only a great leg kicker in his own right, but he has like some of the best kick defense, the best low kick defense that we've ever seen. You know, he's unbelievable with checking kicks. Obviously, his wrestling, his takedown defense is amazing as well. But I think he even has the advantage in the wrestling department, although there's not a shot. This guy's been boxing for the last 2 years. Not a shot we're going to see him shoot a takedown, especially in front of the home crowd. But I don't know, Martinez might be a little overrated. He's on a run now, but I don't know. A lot of those wins maybe look a little bit better than they actually are. I'm not going to pick against Jose Aldo. I think Aldo wins by decision. I think he's going to rip that body. I think he'll check a lot of the leg kicks. And when you're just training boxing, you don't have to worry about the leg kicks. So talk about the worst possible matchup for him coming back, which I've already said about 8 times. But how are you going to pick against Jose Aldo? Who knows if he just wants the money coming back for one fight? You know, you never want to see that, man. So you don't know where his head's at. He wants to go box, so he just has to come kind of get this out of the way in front of the home fans. So who knows his motivation level? It's very hard to say. We'll find out tonight. But I'm backing my guy, Jose Aldo. To the main event we go. Oh, what?
Hold on, Hebs. I just want to make one comment. I don't want to let's not act like Dana's not probably going to pay him 75 and 75 to show here to co-main the pay-per-view.
One thing, right? All these guys, it seems like this UFC contract is we see that with Masvidal. He's been talking about, Masvidal just won't shut up about anything, and he'll talk to anyone who listens to him. But I guess I fall into that category. He's talking about how he can't box because of like the contract, and maybe that like Dana's going to let him and Nate, because obviously Nate can kind of do what he wants, but like I guess Dana would have to approve it if you're going to move on. Like, dude, Jose Aldo, like you can't let that. He has one fight left, and you're going to make you can't just let him out of his contract. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm kind of.
They do it all the time. They hold all the leverage. Like Masvidal re-upped his contract when we went to the Covington Masvidal fight. He re-upped his contract 2 days before the fight, and they do that because they'll be like, "Hey, look, all right, you're fighting Kobe on Saturday. We'll pay you they'll pay him a nice purse there, and then it'll be a set in stone contract for the next, let's say, a 4-fight deal, 3-fight deal, whatever." So and then they have you locked up. Like you can't unless they approve or allow you to. You can't do anything, and they basically have all your rights and all the leverage. They do it to people all the time. I mean, bro, you heard, dude. Cerrone said he made the same amount of money that he made for his last 5 fights when he fought Conor because he wanted to respect the deal that he signed, bro. If you didn't clear $1 million to fight Conor McGregor. Like, what are we doing here? Like, come on, bro. I think he said he made $300,000, bro. Like, come on, dude. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm sure we could talk about fighter pay all day, but when you see that just get glanced over, this guy's been retired for a year and a half, and he moved on to boxing. I believe he's fought twice. I mean, he fought Jeremy Stevens. Was that in? Wasn't that in Gamebred FC? Wasn't that in Masvidal promotion?
Yeah.
So I guess they let him out for some shit, but he wants to go be a real boxer and make real money. That just blows my mind. You're not going to, the guy fought for 15 years in the UFC. is as big of a legend as you can get, like a top 10 fighter by every metric in the history of the sport. And like, you can't just let him out of, he had one fight. Maybe if it's 4 or 5 fights, that's one thing. But like, I don't know, dude. You hear about these guys fighting out their contract. I don't see how that makes, and who benefits from it, right? Like, I don't know. But yeah, that fighter pay, I guess we'll put a pin in that, and we'll get into at another point. Moving on to the main event of the evening, I think we have a super, super fun, exciting fight here. Alexandre Pantoja versus Astro Boy. Talk about a sick name. Steve Erceg, a guy, the number 10 ranked fighter in the division, off the top of my head, thinking of a guy lower who's got a title fight. I remember Dan Henderson against Mike Bisping. He was ranked like 13 or 14 or something, but he had a win over Bisping, and Bisping ducked everyone. So they just gave him that fight. But you never see a guy, sometimes the top of the division has already fought the champion. You'll see the 4, 5, 6 ranked fighter get the shot. 10 is very low. A lot of this guy's been in the UFC for a year. He has 3 fights in the UFC. What do you think about this fight, Justin? I like, again, very, very interesting bantamweight, a division that, just to be frank, I mean, people don't really care about. It had a very exciting run these last couple years with Moreno and Figgy fighting, half dozen times. But, now we've moved on. We have a great champion, but still a guy who maybe isn't getting the respect he deserves, and he's fighting a guy that nobody knows. So what are we feeling going into this one?
Yeah, the flyweight title's on the line in Brazil. I mean, this is like you said, I think a very high level fight, a fight I'm really looking forward to. Like you said, Erceg ranked 10th, getting a title shot. People are like, well, when the fight was announced, I'm like, what? Like, but I think you're looking at, again, we not to go back to fighter pay, but you have a guy who the UFC, I'm sure, is paying. The guy's probably made 12 and 12 for his last 3 fights. And now they're like, oh man, you're fighting for the title. We'll pay you $100 grand or 150 grand. And the guy's like, oh, I can take. Yeah, like, so I think it's a situation like that. They probably didn't have too many fights to make in the flyweight division that like made sense for this card. They needed to get the card out there in Brazil, and they have a Brazilian champion in Pantoja who they could build off of with a win here this weekend. But I will say, this is going to be a very competitive fight, dude. When you watch the Erceg tape, like I'm like, oh, this dude's a legit striker. But then you come to find out he comes into the UFC with submission wins. He's got a good ground game, and I'm like, dude, this guy's pretty complete, and he's got a like height advantage over a lot of guys at the flyweight division. But I'm like, oh, is he gonna have a significant advantage over Pantoja? But then you look at their reaches, and they're almost identical in reach. So it's gonna be a very interesting fight. I will say the run that Pantoja's been on isn't talked about enough, though. I think Pantoja's been on a pretty special run. And he's been an elite fighter for quite some time, honestly. I remember him fighting on the undercard when we were in Atlanta, I'm pretty sure. And dude, the guy's been like a really good fighter.
Want to know what's crazy? So I was just like, when looking at this fight, he was supposed to fight for the belt before like the whole Figgy Moreno. So he kind of just got stuck. I think he tore his ACL in 2020 or around that time. But then you just get stuck with those two fighting nonstop for years. I know he fought Figgy, but yeah, so he was in the title picture forever. And then talk about like a clogged division when those two just kept fighting. So he kind of got screwed. And then now, yeah, again, he comes and he gets the belt. But as you said, a player in this division for a long time. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just think that's so crazy. Like, you don't really hear about these flyweights.
Yeah.
So, and especially a guy like him, he's not a guy who gets on the mic and talks a ton. So yeah, I just found that's crazy to me that he's been in the picture for that long. But go on, sorry.
Yeah, man. No, it is. He's kind of. It's like he hasn't been on like this historic run, but he's kind of been on like a legit run for quite some time. You know what I mean? And to give a prediction, I'm not going to go against Pantoja with the run he's been on. Erceg does look like a guy who's going to give a lot of people problems. Might even give Pantoja some serious problems. But I'm going to go with Pantoja, the experience in his country or Brazil, to get the job done. I think he'll be able to mix in some takedowns. I'm interested to see how he is on the feet against Erceg. Like, if Erceg's too long and hitting him with these straight shots, that could be a big problem for Pantoja. But I'm gonna rock with the champion, the experience. I think he gets it done. I'm gonna say by decision. And yeah, I mean, I think either way, I think the UFC likes either way this fight could go. You got Erceg, he wins. They get a champion. They can pay 80 and 80. Pantoja wins. Pantoja wins. They got a Brazilian who builds his rep up in Brazil and continues to rise and be this star. So yeah, I think it's
I
a
agree.
win-win for the UFC.
That's what I'm saying.
What do you
Like,
think?
regardless of what you think about this fight, like, it is, like you said, a win-win. Like, if Pantoja wins, then we got to start having a conversation about this guy. Now he's defended his belt a couple times. Talk about clearing out a division. The two next best guys, he's 5-0 against. He's fought Moreno three.
Yeah.
Actually, if you look at Moreno's record, has he only fought two fucking guys? He fought Figgy 4 times, and then he's fought Pantoja 3 times. I know one was on the Ultimate Fighter, but yeah, this has to be a win-win for the UFC, right? Like, if Pantoja wins, now you're looking at a pretty dominant champion, a guy who's cleared out the division, who's now defending his belt. But if Astro Boy wins, he's got a little bit of something to him, as we've seen in the build-up to this fight. We're seeing a lot of memes. I don't really understand. He doesn't really look like Steve Carell from The Office, although that seems to be what we're going. I mean, they have the same name, which is Steve, which is like the most common name. I don't really see the correlation there, but it's cool with me because it's funny. But I love some of the hype around this dude, bro. Like, and then when you look more into it, so I knew this guy as a striker, as a slick striker. People call him one of the best boxers in the UFC, one of the more accurate guys. And so that was kind of my understanding of this fight before I dove a little more into it. Again, the guy's ranked 10th, 3 fights under the UFC banner, and he had made his debut a year ago. So, like, I didn't know all too much about him. We saw the Schnell knockout, about as beautiful as a 1-2-3. That what a crisp left hook that put him to sleep in the first round. We don't have to talk about Matt Schnell's chin and whether or not that is a legit victory. Shout out to Matt Schnell, though. UFC Long Island last summer, 2 summers ago. Best comeback of all time. Saw it with my own 2 baby blues. So shout out to him, but a little bit chinny. So, I mean, if that's the only thing, I just keep seeing that left hook. And I think that's all anyone knows about him. So I was like, oh, this guy's a great boxer. How's that going to hold up against Pantoja? But putting my journalism cap on, this guy is a very credentialed wrestler in the Australian scene. You know, he's got a gold medal in some regional scene in Australia, which again isn't like the most important thing, but still nonetheless, you know, means he can grapple. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. We've seen some great jiu-jitsu come out of Australia. So this guy's no joke on the ground. He came into the sport. I mean, now as we see some of these guys who, you know, you're not a wrestling background, boxing background, you just start with MMA, learning all the bases. So a very, very well-rounded fighter, although he's only getting talked about for his left hand with the Schnell knockout. So he does have great hands, but before he got into the sport, or before he got into the UFC, he was known more as a grappler. I think he had 5 submissions and 1 KO coming into the UFC. So he's only got 2 career KOs. He's not this knockout artist. He does have great slick boxing, but he's a very, very credentialed grappler. Pantoja, but we saw what so Moreno was a very credentialed grappler, and look what Pantoja did to him. So it's very difficult to say this guy's probably a better wrestler than Moreno, but again, who knows how these two are gonna gel stylistically. You can't, you know, MMA math has never worked, but I don't know, man. I've been back and forth on this. I think a lot of people were getting a little too crazy. People this is just another thing that the UFC fans do. I'm seeing so many people say, like, don't sleep on Erceg, brother. Like, Erceg's going to knock him out. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, well, why do you think he's going to do that? Having said that, I was trying to talk myself into that same prediction, but I think people just like hot take artists just kind of say random stuff. Astro Boy is a very cool nickname. That's another thing I'm going with Erceg for. But I think there's going to be a dogfight. Both of them have granite chins. Like, again, in looking at Erceg's gotten cracked in every one of his fights, even before the UFC. Like, that's what he's known for in the Australian scene, for having an iron chin. And that's his striking defense, is just, it's right here, just taking it. So, and even in that Schnell fight, he got cracked a couple times in like the 3 minutes that it lasted. So I think, and Pantoja, I don't even have to tell you about his chin. We saw in the Moreno fight, the guy looked like he just fought like a meat grinder or something. So this is going to be a sick fight. I think stylistically, it's a very fun matchup. Even though Erceg, we could say he has a little bit of an advantage in the striking department. He's probably a little bit faster. But Pantoja is no scrub in that department. He's got a little bit. I think he might have the power differential. Again, Erceg, not too powerful, but just very, very, very accurate. So that does damage in its own right. So I don't know how this fight's going to play out, man. I kind of want to pick Erceg. I love Pantoja. And I'm going to go with Pantoja in front of his home fans. I think it'll be a 5-round war. This is going to be a sick fight. This is going to have a lot of people eating their words about what they said about this card, because I think this is going to be a great fight. We saw Moreno versus Pantoja. That was an awesome fight. But again, people just don't really seem to care about these flyweights that got overshadowed by Volk's victory this past summer. So, but again, Pantoja has been in wars. I don't really like toughness being your best attribute, just being able to take a shot right, because, again, your chin's going to go at some point. But this is going to be a great fight. I have Pantoja by decision victory, but I think Erceg, after this fight, he's going to grow a little bit too. People are going to say, all right, this guy's going to be around in the division for a while. But then we might have a little bit of the makings of a star with Pantoja. But that's what I got. Again, I could see it being usually these when a card gets this much hate on paper, usually turns out being okay. So very excited for tonight. I think we have we'll have some fun fights. Although on paper it looks like a snooze fest. Who knows? That's the great thing about the UFC. Justin, any clues?
I will say I do think it's going to be an entertaining night of fights. Like, I don't think it's going to be like, I think all these, even these big favorites, like these are going to be like, all of these fights could be finishes. You know what I mean? So it's going to be an entertaining main card, to say the least. And like you said, I think the final 2 fights of the night are definitely going to deliver, in my opinion. But yeah, UFC 301 from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I'm looking forward to it, man. Another episode with my buddy Hebs. Let's go. Follow the Ballin and Brawlin podcast, YouTube,
that was
TikTok.
A bad combo. I swear Spotify. I have hands. Anthony Smith fight card, a.k.a. must-see television. Tune in. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to that YouTube. Follow the talk, and let's get it rolling here. All right. Enjoy the fights.
All right,